My thumb hovered for 4 seconds. 4 full seconds over a photo posted 1,092 days ago. And it still slipped. Not a graze, not a maybe. A full, confirmed double tap on a photo from 3 years deep in someone's profile. And I watched the little heart flash red like it was announcing something on the evening news. By the end of this, you're going to understand why that one accidental like felt like a 5-alarm emergency. What it actually reveals about how your brain tracks social risk, and why the panic that came after says a lot more about me than it ever said about them. Because here's the assumption I was operating under in that moment, the one my whole nervous system fully believed. Liking an old photo means you got caught. It means they saw it. It means they know exactly how deep you scrolled, and they are at this exact second showing their friends. That was the belief. And it was wrong. Almost entirely wrong. But it didn't feel wrong. It felt like a verdict. It always starts innocently. That's the trap. One photo shows up on an explore page or in a mutual friend's comment section, and you think, who's that? You tap the name. That's it. That's the whole crime, supposedly. Except one tap becomes a profile, and a profile becomes a grid, and a grid becomes a rabbit hole you didn't plan on entering. You're not even reading captions at that point. You're pattern hunting. Who's in the background? Whose arm is that? Why did the posting frequency change in that 1 year? Time does something weird during a scroll like that. 10 minutes collapses into what feels like 10 seconds because your brain isn't processing information the normal way anymore. It's scanning, hunting, half on autopilot. You don't clock how far back you've gone until you're already there. 3 years back, a different haircut, a different phone camera quality, a whole different era of someone's life that you had no business being inside of at 11:40 at night. And that's usually where the scroll would just quietly end. Normally you close the app, you move on, no one's the wiser. But not this time. This time your thumb does the one single thing it was never ever supposed to do. The heart flashes red. That's it. That's the whole disaster. A stray tap, maybe a double press that wasn't even intentional, lands right on a photo from years back, and the icon lights up like a flare. And here's the part that makes it worse. Every major platform shows that like instantly, in real time, straight to the account owner. There's no delay, no buffer, no grace period where you get to think it over first. It just happens live, the second your finger makes contact. Which means you now have maybe 2 seconds, 3 if you're lucky, before the unlike button either saves you or it doesn't. And in that tiny window, your brain does something almost cartoonish. And what happens in the next 10 seconds of your body is honestly the real story here, more than the photo ever was. Because here's what I believed, completely in that moment. I believed they would see it instantly. I believed they'd screenshot it. I believed they now had hard evidence of exactly how far back I'd gone, like I'd left a signed confession at a crime scene. That's the assumption, that a like is basically a formal announcement of surveillance, stamped and dated. Except that's not really how it works. Most notification feeds bury activity from accounts you don't interact with much, ranking it lower, sometimes so far down it never surfaces at all. Plenty of people don't even check likes on old posts, because why would they? Nobody's sitting there monitoring engagement on a photo from 3 years ago. But knowing that logically didn't stop what was happening in my chest in real time. So I unliked it, immediately, under a second probably. That's the instinctive, near-universal reflex. The thumb yanks back like it touched a stove. And here's the cruel little detail. Depending on how notifications sync, some apps still show a brief liked flash to the other person, even if you undo it fast. A flicker in their feed before it disappears, like a shadow passing under a door. Which means the unlike might not have even mattered, but the panic was never really about whether the flicker registered. The panic was about the meaning I'd already assigned to being seen, seeing. It wasn't about the photo. It was about what I imagined the photo said about me. So why does one heart icon trigger a full-body alarm response like that? Turns out this maps onto something your brain does automatically. Social threat detection. Perceived judgment gets processed in a way that overlaps with actual physical risk, which is a well-documented feature of how social anxiety operates. Your nervous system doesn't fully distinguish between predator nearby and someone might think I'm weird, which sounds absurd until you remember that caring intensely about reputation and status within your group used to be a literal survival mechanic. Getting cast out of the group thousands of years ago wasn't a bruised ego, it was a death sentence. Your brain still runs that old software, and the belief underneath the whole spiral, they definitely noticed, is your brain wildly overestimating how much anyone is actually tracking you. There's a name for that, the spotlight effect. A documented bias where you assume you're being watched and remembered far more than you actually are. Which means the story I told myself about their reaction was never based on their actual behavior at all. It was based on nothing. It was a script I wrote for both of us. So what did they probably experience, in reality, on the other end of that flicker? Most people, most of the time, are not obsessively refreshing to monitor who's liking their 3-year-old posts. That's just not how anyone spends their day. And if they did happen to notice, the most common reaction, based on what people actually report when this happens to them, is mild amusement, or a shrug, or nothing at all. Not alarm, not a group chat, not a screenshot. The asymmetry here is almost funny once you see it. My internal experience of that moment was enormous. My heart rate spiked. My whole evening reorganized itself around it. Their external experience, if it existed at all, was probably a half-second blip they forgot about by the time they put their phone down. So the version of them sitting there, judging me, keeping receipts, telling their friends, where did that version even come from? It came from me, entirely from me. If this is making you rethink how much anyone actually clocks your every move, the next thing worth watching is the one about replaying a text message for 2 hours before sending it, because it's the exact same glitch wearing a different outfit. That's really the whole reframe. The spotlight effect means you're always the main character of your own anxiety and almost never the main character of anyone else's day. It's not just the like. It's the comment you rehearsed in your head for an hour before saying it out loud. It's the text you reread 20 times looking for a tone that wasn't there. It's the outfit you almost changed 3 times because you thought people would notice. Across all of it, the actual evidence keeps saying the same thing. Other people notice and remember dramatically less about you than you assume, because they're busy running the exact same anxious spotlight loop about themselves. So that spiral I had, replaying the tap, rehearsing an explanation nobody was ever going to ask me for, that wasn't proof I did something wrong. That was just my brain's ancient reputation tracker, misfiring on an app it was never built to understand. Next time you catch yourself mid-panic over something this small, remember, you are not being watched nearly as closely as it feels in your chest. Most of what your scared people saw they never even looked at in the first place. Anyway, that happened.